So you guys voted for this video over on my Instagram stories, and today I'm going to be sharing some tips that helped me score a band 1 in the Situational Judgement section. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel Raina on the Cusp. My name is Raina and I'm going into my 4th year of dental school, and today we are continuing on with my UCAT series. In this video, I'm going to be sharing my top tips that helped me score a band 1 in the Situational Judgement section. However, I have done quite a few UCAT videos by now, so please do go check those out as well. And if you like this video, you know what to do. Please go leave it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and comment down below to let me know if you have any questions about this section of the UCAT. So what is the Situational Judgement section of the UCAT? This is the last section of the UCAT, and it tests your ability to choose the correct, justified response to real-world medical scenarios using principles that all doctors have to follow. There are 69 questions and 22 scenarios associated with them. Each scenario may have up to 6 questions related to it, and there are 26 minutes to answer these questions, so that's roughly 23 seconds per question, which isn't a lot of time at all. This section is also scored with a band system, with band 1 being the highest and band 4 being the lowest. So before we get into my tips, I'd actually say this is one of the most useful sections of the UCAT because these are all scenarios that you may come across in your working life as a doctor or a dentist. So getting you to think about how you would actually respond to these situations is a great way for medical schools or dental schools to assess your thinking. And you also actually have to sit another situational judgment test at the end of medical or dental school to actually be able to progress and get a job as a junior doctor or a foundation dentist. So firstly, there are some really important resources that you need to read in order to do well in this section. Firstly, I want to talk about Good Medical Practice, which is a document produced by the GMC, the General Medical Council, and this is an essential piece of reading to do well in this section. It outlines what is expected of you as a doctor if you are registered with the GMC, so everyone needs to be familiar with this. This is quite a lengthy document, but I would definitely recommend reading it or at least skimming it before your exam. I've picked out a little section from the document that I will leave on the screen now for you to read. It basically describes what it means to be a good doctor, and I think it's a really good starting point if you've not come across this document before. There are 4 domains or sections of the Good Medical Practice document, which I will leave on the screen now. So I know reading something like this can be a little bit overwhelming, especially as it is quite long. So I would recommend skimming over it, looking at the sections, just getting a general feel for it as well. The reason I'm placing so much emphasis on this document is because the SJT is very repetitive. The same themes and ideas and concepts come up again and again, and it's all pretty much based around this document. So my next tip is to understand the different question types. There are 2 question types in this section: appropriateness questions and importance questions. Appropriateness questions ask you to judge how appropriate a specific response or action is to a particular scenario. And importance questions ask you to judge how important a certain consideration is when you are responding to a scenario. It's always important to consider things like patient safety, maintaining confidence in the profession, patient trust, and honesty and integrity. Those are just some of the things that I could think of off the top of my head, but there are definitely lots more factors. And remember, you only need to judge the response and not the scenario itself. So my next tip is learn the duties of a doctor or a dentist. This is very important because all of the questions will be based around what is expected of you as a doctor. So I found a handy list in another GMC document called Tomorrow's Doctors. I will leave it on the screen now. I would definitely learn this list and have it in your head when you're answering any SJT questions so that you can apply it. My next tip is to get familiar with the different common scenarios that come up again and again. And of course, this will come with practice, so don't worry if you're not quite recognizing it in the beginning. So just to give you a few examples, these are things like confidentiality breaches, how to deal with a mistake, substance misuse, teamwork issues, professionalism, or even what to do when a patient offers you a gift. This isn't an exhaustive list by any means, so when you come across a different scenario, I would recommend writing a list and adding to this as you go along. So next, you want to think about who you are in the scenario. So you could be a medical student on placement or a junior doctor or even another role, but your response will be affected by who you are in the situation, so do be mindful of that. For example, if you are a medical student on placement in the scenario and a patient asks you to give them an update on their health condition, so it might be obvious but you're not qualified to do this, so you need to go to a senior colleague so do be mindful of your role in the situation. My next tip is to actually understand how the SJT is marked. It's a little bit different to the other sections, and I will explain why. So in this section of the UCAT, you can actually get partial marks. So this is when you're on the right side of the response, but you've just got the severity of it wrong. So for example, with appropriateness questions, you can be asked if it's very appropriate or just appropriate or inappropriate or very inappropriate. So with questions like these, I would first decide whether the answer is good or bad. This means at least you can get on the right side of the argument and pick up a partial mark. And when you start to think a little bit logically, you can often eliminate answers that are just completely wrong in this section as well. Another tip that helped me in this section was always keeping the patient's best interests in mind. This is what the whole profession is about, whether that's medicine or dentistry, and every scenario when it's involving a patient will ask you to sort of think about what consequence does it have to the patient. I appreciate not all questions will revolve around a patient, but when it does, do keep them in mind first and how the action will affect them. So this section has 69 questions and not very much time to answer them, so your speed reading really needs to be up to scratch. Hopefully, because you've already been practicing this for the verbal reasoning section, you can just transfer this skill for this section as well. You need to be able to read the passage fairly quickly and understand the scenario. However, the most time will be spent at the beginning of every new scenario, because this is when you're actually digesting a new passage, and then answering the rest of the questions based on the scenario will be a lot faster. So keep practicing questions, keep timing yourself. Timing yourself is essential because it is so tight for this section. And as well as speed reading, I would probably recommend not using the flagging function in this section. Now, I know what you're thinking, hang on a minute. Don't flag. I think in this section it's a lot more useful to read the scenario properly and thoroughly once through, rather than coming back to it and running the risk of overthinking and second guessing your answer. So just read it once through, go with your gut, go with your instinct, and I'm sure you'll get the right answer. If you find you're not getting the right answers, you really need to understand why, especially in this section. This is because I actually think this is one of the easiest sections to see improvements on, because all of the questions are based around the same principles and codes of conduct that doctors have to follow. So once you know those, and once you can see if you're not quite understanding one of these principles, you can definitely improve upon your score. And also do remember, this is the last section of the UCAT, so you're probably a little bit tired by now, a little bit worn out, but you do need to sort of gather all of the energy and strength you have left and put it into this last section. I think in the 1 minute instruction time, I just relaxed and tried to clear my head and took a moment before entering the last section of the UCAT. Thank you all so much for watching. I've now done all 5 sections of the UCAT, so go check out all of the other videos. And best of luck for your exam this year. I know you'll do amazing and smash it. I hope you enjoyed this one, and I will see you all again in the next video. Bye!